If I was any better, I would be you, Ron. No, actually, if I was any better, I'd be Jim Madison.
Well, you'd be scraping the bottom. Yep.
It's just think of that. It's getting to be pea coat weather, guys.
That's right.
Pretty soon I'm gonna get that pea coat on. You
Oh, I
too.
tell you what, I'm going to be in Detroit this weekend, so I'll be rocking it.
Oh, you better take it. Absolutely.
And there it is. Well, Marlene, how are you?
Good, and you?
I'm fine, thanks. Hello, Peter.
Hello, everybody.
There,
How's everybody?
doing well.
Yeah.
Commissioner Bodens is with us. Hi, Ron.
Hi there, Chairman.
Dr. Hay, how are you this evening?
It's fine. How's everybody?
Good, thanks. Hi, Carol.
Hello.
Aaron, I don't think you got the memo.
What was that?
You have to wear glasses to this meeting.
That's because I didn't go home. If I was home, I would have taken my contacts out.
It's because she's a lot younger than the rest of us.
Hey, Aaron's the only one on here not wearing glasses.
I do have them, and I'd prefer to be wearing them right now. But
This is Elliot. Good evening, Elliot.
Good evening. Hello, everybody.
hi, Elliot.
I don't know about Tom Berland, but I believe Joe is away. So I don't think we'll see him. And I know John Mathers, he's traveling, so he will not be with us. So if that's the case, Giselle is going to be joining us. She said she is, and then Tom, and then we'll be all set.
Okay,
Got another couple minutes anyway.
sure.
I guess we're all set now, except for Aaron and Marlene.
Oh, there's Giselle.
With Joel's observation.
Yeah, that's true.
Giselle is right in line.
Hello, how was everyone?
Hey, Giselle.
Thank you. Give him just another couple seconds for Tom. If not, we'll start the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you a question?
Yes, you certainly can.
So how, on the election, how does it work out? Does Mr. Wilson become a selectman even though he was running for first selectman, or does Joe serve? Because he,
The top vote getters go on to the Board of Selectmen. So what you said first is what happens, that
okay,
Bruce and Noreen will serve on the Board of Selectmen, and Joe dropped off.
I got it, okay. Yeah, I think that's what happened last time. Banish went on and, but, because he's a larger vote getter than
He
someone
wasn't.
else.
I do remember, and I forget what it was. It was a fair number of years ago, 15-ish, that the first selectman was one of the candidates for first selectman did not garner enough votes to serve on the Board of Selectmen, which is kind of unusual. But it happened at least once in my memory.
It happened in Guilford a couple of years ago too.
Did it? So, well, I think what I'd like to do is start the meeting. So welcome everyone to November 4th, 2021 meeting of the Mass Planning and Zoning Commission. And we will be, I believe, voting on a thing or two this evening. So before we begin, let me seat Ron Bodenson for Joe Bonofsky, Carol Snow for John Mathers, and Peter Roos for Tom Burland. And with that, we'll get to our first application, which is 21-22 Coastal 307 Neck Road, map 12, lot 147 in the R4 district. The owner applicant is Nancy J. Brault, and it's a coastal site plan to chip seal and asphalt a portion of existing gravel driveway area of about 2,780 square feet. I understand earlier today from Aaron, you have an update on that?
Sure. So this application, as it's a coastal site plan, was referred to DEEP, and DEEP came back with some comments today with some concerns regarding existing tidal wetland violations on the property and some other alternatives for the driveway instead of chip sealing. Based on this information, the applicant has requested that we table any action and discussion on this so they could explore addressing those concerns. So the commission has until the meeting, December 16th, I believe, is the 65-day deadline. So my recommendation would be to table this to allow, I mean, you're welcome to table it to each meeting, giving the applicant time to update it, or you're also welcome to just table it to this December 16th as well.
Okay, well, my thought on that would be, I know we talked last time about the issue with the asphalt plants slowing down, closing up, let alone slowing down. So if it would be okay, I would offer up or ask a commission member to make a motion to table till our planning meeting in December, which would be what, the 2nd?
The 2nd, correct.
On the assumption that the applicant has that information by then, we can
Right.
table that. Does that make sense? I'd appreciate a motion to that effect.
I'll move to table this matter until the 2nd of December.
Okay,
Second, I'll second.
okay. No discussion on table, so I'll call for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you for that. The second item on the agenda is a discussion of accessory apartment regulations, section 24. What I thought, Aaron, since we have some folks from the Land Conservation Trust, that maybe we could skip over that one if it's okay with the commission. And if their presenters are here, to take up their time, for that discussion.
I think we're still waiting, Ron, on Dave Roach. Ben is here, the president of the Land Trust, I see in our attendees, but Dave Roach and Dave had a slideshow he wanted to share. So
All right,
we may want to wait a few more minutes to give him time to log on.
that's
There was
fine.
just a message saying David wouldn't make.
Oh, thank you. Okay, well then I take that back and I will, if the commission would like to rearrange their agenda, we can have Ben join us now.
Does that make sense, folks?
It's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, we will ask the Madison Land Conservation Trust to join us and make their presentation.
Hey, Ben, can you, yep, you there?
Yeah, sorry, I kind of disconnected, I guess, while I switched to being a panelist, so I think I may have missed the transition there. Anyway, yeah, I'm Ben Diebold, president of the Land Trust. Sorry, I just sort of found out about this and that I was going to be here about a half hour ago. So my presentation consists of exactly 2 slides, I think, which I'm happy to share.
Please do.
So what we are asking for, I guess, is if the Madison Planning and Zoning Commission is willing to write us a letter of support for our Connecticut Deep Open Space Watershed Land Acquisition Grant Proposal. We're looking to acquire a 29-acre parcel along the Hammonasset River, which is the former Lafarge property, which is now owned by Karen Thielen. We have a kind of an agreement in place already, of a letter of intent signed with Karen. We're looking to raise grant money to help with this acquisition. We think this acquisition is important for a lot of reasons. We think it's a great way to protect the existing Hammonasset watershed corridor. We think it ties in very nicely with open space acquisitions and trails in the area. And we think it satisfies a lot of the conditions that are laid out in the town plan of conservation and development. Conserves open land, no cost to the Madison taxpayer. We will be making this publicly accessible, available for fishers. It's an important cold water fishery for trout. There are endangered species that are known to live on the property. So there are a lot of reasons why it's a wonderful property. And here's a picture of the property.
Wow.
So it's dominated by this beautiful meadow in the middle of the property, although it does consist of, and one of the interesting features about the property is that it has a a lot of very distinct biomes. It has these permanent pool features. It has this cold water fishery. It has the meadow. It has the wetlands, and it has this upland forest component. So it's a wonderful little microcosm along the Hammonasset River watershed area that we're very excited to be in a position to preserve for the town of Madison. And we hope that the P&Z Commission agrees with us. I guess that's about all I have to say about that. I don't know, is there any other questions for us?
Does the commissioners have any questions for Mr. DeBold? I mean, I think
This on
that,
the, is this on the west side of the river? This meadow?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
It's right in the middle of that kind of nook where it bulges out. It's accessible from Green Hill Road, so there would be a publicly accessible parking area right across the street from Fawn Brook Circle. And then the current trail, which is actually sort of drivable, connects from Green Hill Road all the way to the meadow near the river. And of course, there are all kinds of fisherman trails that go along the Hammonasset River through there.
To update the commission, my predecessor, Dave Anderson, did write a letter of support for the Land Conservation Trust back in June. I can share that with you. I also am happy to share a draft letter on behalf of the commission as well, should you choose to also support this grant application process.
Hey, Ben, if I could ask a question, the picture you showed of the meadow, how old is that picture?
Oh, that was last year, I think, 2020.
The reason why I ask is because when I was a kid, I lived about 4 driveways up from the river, and I used to go through the woods, before there were houses back there. I used to go through the woods down to that meadow, and then I would fish the river there. And the meadow in your picture looks just like it did, say, some years ago. And even as a kid, I always was like waiting for the unfortunate time when someone would come and develop that property. And that it hasn't been developed yet actually tickles me quite a bit.
Yeah, I have to say we're about 3 hours away from this property ending up beyond our reach. So we felt very fortunate to be in the position that we are now, where we have this opportunity to work with the willing seller and write the grant proposal. So we think this is going to be a great project for Madison going forward.
okay, any other comments or questions from the commission?
Yeah, just a quick question. I just more out of interest than anything else. I actually live not far from there and have walked back there. There aren't really good trails right now. Is there a plan to put in or create some trails for walking through that area? Just make it more accessible.
Yeah, so there'll certainly be a trail that connects from the Green Hill parking lot, which basically exists now, down to the meadow area. And then our plan would be to mow at least a circuit around the meadow, once or twice a year as appropriate. And then we would maintain the meadow. So we'd probably mow the meadow maybe once a year, which is consistent with its sort of prior maintenance practice. In addition to that, we're also planning for an access point off of Windsor Court. So we're hoping to have a trail wind down through the woods at the top of the hill there, back down into the meadow. So basically it would be a loop around the meadow and then connecting points from either access point to the west and then to the south.
In the parking area that you're using, are you referring to the existing turnoff that was created when they reconstructed Green Hill Road, or are you looking to expand that?
Well, there's that area just beyond where there is now the gate. So there's that little turnoff area right in front of the gate, which
Yes.
I think is maybe what you're talking about. But then there
Yes.
is also kind of a prior established parking area in that kind of little clearing just beyond the gate. So I think we would reinstitute that, and then I think we would have to reconsider the existence of the gate. I mean, we don't really have staffing to open and close gates. So the rest of our properties are generally just sort of open at all points, although we ask that people not access them after dusk. We understand that that's not something that we're actively policing, but it's something that we do ask. And we'd probably enforce our, current and existing policies elsewhere at the same place here.
Okay, thank you.
I just had one more question. Maybe this isn't appropriate. What's the cost to acquire this acreage?
The purchase price from the Lafarge Family Trust was about 900,000, and it looks like we'll be able to work with the dealer, with this current owner for something in the same range.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, she's been very, a generous, landowner to deal with. Yeah.
Anyone else?
It's interesting that on this map shows Green Hill Road going north-south.
Yes,
According to the compass rose.
Yeah.
Yeah, there may be a little twist in our
I think it's
in our map
twisted.
orientation here. Yeah.
kind of
That's why I was,
Yeah.
that's why I was having a problem then in figuring out where that was with relation to Green Hill, now that I see Green Hill. Now that, because I've been looking at it to find it going east-west, but
it is.
I think you're right. I think our map is basically tilted about 30 degrees here or something.
yeah. And because on the other side of the river, there's another beautiful meadow that is part of that, the big white colonial and the red barn that's on the
That's right.
side.
Yeah.
That was the same family, correct?
It was, okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lafarge's owned both sides. Yeah.
okay.
I think your mind's eye wants it to be east-west because you take a left turn maybe from Horse Pond or 79, but Green Hill actually does run fairly north-south from Killingworth down into Madison.
Well, the compass rose in the upper right-hand corner certainly indicates that.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Well, yeah, actually, you're right. That is, I live across the street and I can tell you where the sun rises, so.
Yeah.
It is coming from across
I
the street.
know it bears north. I didn't think it was as such a direct north, Joe. Doesn't matter. Okay, I know where it is now. Thank you.
I had the same reaction, actually. Yeah, I'm a little surprised, but okay. Yeah. I should have had more confidence in our map guy.
So it might be appropriate then, Aaron, if there are no other questions from the commission, to share with us Dave's letter, which was written in his position as town planner, writing on behalf of P and Z, and then share the letter that you drafted that would go to the conservation folks to include with their grant application. Is that
Of
possible?
course. Yes, Ben, if you could just unshare, I would happily share my screen. Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Am I right in understanding this is not an either or situation, right? The letter from Dave Anderson is independent of the letter from
Yes,
planning and zoning, is
this
that
would
right?
be
Yeah,
2 letters
right. Okay.
submitting. So this is the letter from Dave. I'll let you just peruse through here real quick.
Is everybody read it? Anybody who's in the process still?
Hmm.
Can we take it down, Commission?
Yeah.
Okay,
Anybody else set? Everybody get a chance? All right, that's what Dave submitted back in June. And Aaron, you were nice enough to draft a letter on our behalf to submit. So if you can, would you share that? And this is what you're suggesting we provide to the Land Conservation Trust.
yes. I can make this bigger for you. I apologize. There you go.
South side of Green Hill Road.
Yes, I can amend it to the east side.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Thank you, Ron.
I think we need a site view.
It is the east side.
Get that Google truck to drive across it with the 3D, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody who's not done reading it?
Okay.
Hearing none. So I guess the threshold question is, does the commission feel that we would support the land trust obtaining the property and applying for the grant? I think to most of us, from what we said, the question is obvious, but I think it still should be asked. So we're all in favor of supporting the application and the request for the grant.
Yes.
I don't think we need a motion to do that. Everybody is, okay. And that said, how about the letter itself? I think Aaron did a nice job with it, but certainly any comments you might have about something that's missing, or and a little geography lesson, which we've already had. Thank you, Ron. So if there's no discussion about that, I would entertain a motion to approve and support this letter on behalf of the Land Conservation Trust. Anybody willing to make that motion?
I'll move to support the letter in support of the Land Conservation Trust, and I'm fine with the draft that Aaron's created.
Thanks, Joel. Second? Elliot? Any discussion? All in favor then, signify by saying aye. Aye. So, Mr. Bold, thank you for your time and for the presentation. Maybe beyond that, thank you and all the members of the Conservation Trust for the great work you do on behalf of the town. It's amazing what you've accomplished and continue to do. So keep up the good work and good luck with the grant.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and thank you all very much. We appreciate your support.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
Here.
You know, just a little sidebar. I lost a $5 bet to my wife a number of years ago. She used to have to go quite frequently to Cromwell for meetings. And she told me that the shortest route to the intersection, to get to Route 9 in Middletown, is Green Hill Road and up 81. And I bet her $5 it wasn't. It's obvious. You go straight north, right, Joel, on 79, you go over 17, and there you are. So I lost $5. It's actually a mile and a half shorter going that route from, say, Southern Madison than it is the other way. Plus, there's probably 8 traffic lights less to deal with. But little factoid, and I remember that because it cost me $5.
It's true. It cost me a lot more to put a fence up across my property to protect my kids from all that traffic.
Busy road.
Yeah.
Busy road. So at any rate, thank you, Commission, for that. And good luck to the Conservation Trust with their application. So back to the second item on the agenda, which was a discussion of accessory apartment regulations, section 24. And with that, I'll turn it over to Aaron.
Sure. A little planning business. We had discussed this at our last, let's see, our last meeting where we had John present, John Guskowski, and we're trying to find some tasks for John to do while we had him on board here. And one of his items was to analyze our current accessory apartment regulations with respect to the changes that were made in Public Act 21-29 to see where we kind of fell in line with the legislative changes and where our regulations currently differ from the proposed accessory apartment statutes, which become effective on January 1st, 2022. Now, municipalities have 1 year until January 1st, 2023 to decide whether or not they would like to opt out of the legislative language. So the Planning and Zoning Commission would be the commission who would initiate that process should we desire to do so. It would also require 3/4 vote from the Board of Selectmen to opt out of the state's language. So just to kind of bring you up to speed, I think I'm not sure how many of you had an opportunity to review them, how much you want to explore them this evening. I could give you a brief overview and we can kind of think about it a little bit and we can discuss it at a later time, whether we want to draft any amendments to reflect some of these changes. So I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Oops. And I'll make this a little bit bigger if I can reach it. Sorry. Okay. Can everyone see that now? Yeah. Okay. So the first column of the table is what's required in the new language of the statutes. And the second is our regulations and what is in line with that and what may differ. And so the first language of the statute indicates that at least one accessory apartment has to be allowed as of right on each lot that contains a single family dwelling, and no such apartment shall be required to be affordable. So our regulations actually are in harmony with the new Public Act. We do allow per Section 3 of our regulation that residential districts and Section 5 for rural districts that accessory apartments are allowed via administrative permit. So there's no special exception process, no additional requirements in that sense. So no changes are needed there to comply. The second item in the new language is that accessory apartments to be attached to or located within the proposed or existing principal dwelling or detached from the proposed existing dwelling located on the same lot as the dwelling. So we do allow accessory apartments attached to a house. We also allow accessory apartments in detached structures. However, our language, Section 24 is our accessory apartment language in our regulations. There's a section called conversion, and that allows a one-family dwelling a one-family dwelling with an addition thereto, or a one-family dwelling with an accessory building that could be converted into a one-family dwelling with an accessory apartment. So we have the provisions for both attached and detached. However, our language with conversion seems to indicate that a proposed to build a new structure for an accessory apartment may not be allowed. So the commission, you may want to clarify our regulation that states that a new building or a new addition could be established for the purpose of a new accessory apartment, rather than just referencing a conversion of existing structures. So that's one amendment that could be made for clarification only, but otherwise we are in compliance with that language. Number 3 sets a maximum net floor area for an accessory apartment of not less than 30% of the net floor area of the principal dwelling, or 1,000 square feet, whichever is less, except that such regulations may allow for a larger net floor area. Our current regulations put a minimum of 400 square feet and a maximum of 800 square feet, or 30% of the floor area of the primary dwelling, whichever is less. So we also cap the occupancy of the apartment at 3 people. There's no language in the Public Act about occupancy, and we're consistent with the 30% cap, but we would need to increase our maximum square footage by 200 square feet to allow for that 1,000 square foot limit, should the commission want to comply with the order, or with the statute, excuse me. Number 4, it requires that setbacks, lot size, and building frontage less than or equal to that which is required for the principal dwelling, and require lot coverage greater than or equal to what's required for the principal dwelling. So we have no additional restrictions or setbacks with respect to an accessory apartment. So our regulation is compliant there. The 5th item in the Public Act provide for height, landscaping, and architectural design standards that do not exceed any such standards as they're applied to single-family dwellings in the municipality. We do have language in 24.35 that requires the building design of the accessory apartment or the addition accommodating the apartment to be in harmony with the original character of the structures and neighborhood. Additionally, that John did not put in here, if 24.42 states if the proposed conversion is in conformity with our standards and involves no exterior changes, it can be approved by staff. If the proposal involves exterior modifications, the application shall be referred to ACCA and the Planning and Zoning Commission for a formal site plan review. So that addition of the ACCA review is exceeding what would be required for a single family dwelling. So that language may need to be adjusted. And we, especially if you're not in a historic district, residentials don't typically have design constraints for single family dwellings. So that we may want to explore as far as changing some of the language. Number 6 is a mouthful. It basically we're prohibited from requiring a passageway between the accessory apartment and the principal dwelling, an exterior door for any such apartment except as required by building or fire code, any more than 1 parking space for the accessory apartment, or fee in lieu of parking otherwise allowed by the statutes. We're prohibited from requiring a familial, marital, or employment relationship between occupants of the principal dwelling and the apartment. We're prohibited from having a minimum age for occupants of the apartment. Also prohibited from a separate billing of utilities otherwise connected to or used by the principal dwelling. and the periodic renewals for permits for such accessory apartments. So our section 24, 3.6 prohibits an additional exterior door on the front facade unless it's pre-existing. It does not indicate that you cannot have a side entrance. Section 24.33 does require that the property provide 3 off-street parking spaces to serve the primary residence and the accessory units. And our section 24.43 requires annual renewals or affidavits of owner occupancy. So some of our situations, if the current single family dwelling is legally non-conforming with 1 parking space, the Public Act would then limit local zoning from requiring 2 additional spaces for the apartment. If the current single family house has 2 spaces, then the 1 space for the apartment is in compliance, equaling the total of 3. Our annual renewal requirement is in contravention with the Public Act. And as John indicates, is an administrative and enforcement hassle. The Public Act is silent on owner occupancy. It could be challenging from an enforcement standpoint. However, there is no harm in keeping that in the regulations. So that was the last of the sections here. There's nothing that states that local codes cannot restrict short-term rentals or things like that in the town. So the mere fact that there's an accessory apartment on a property does not prevent any other use of short-term rentals. So I think we're fairly close to actually what the language was. I know there was a lot of concern during this, the various bills that were before the floor this summer, and what came out of that was a little dialed back, I think, from what was originally proposed, and quite frankly, not too far off from what Madison has. And I think I would just be looking to get a sense from the commission, maybe if how you feel as far as these differences, are they significant enough where you would feel that it would be a good idea or in our best interest to opt out of the Public Act requirements, or if you feel some of these amendments may be reasonable to be made to our zoning code. Or if you have any general questions. That was a mouthful that you all received.
It seems as though there are some things in there that it might make sense to update to be in compliance. I mean, for example, the 800 square feet to the 1,000. I don't know that that's a huge impediment on anybody, or that we should be against, allowing up to 1,000 square feet. That's my personal view.
Aaron, is this an all or nothing proposition? We either opt out or can we accept things piecemeal?
No, if the commission does not opt out, you are bound by the statutory language. Your existing regulations become null and void.
How big an issue is this? I mean, do we have accessory buildings being applied for every week and scores going up?
I think there is. I think we have a good amount. I could run numbers as far as how many we've had over the last few years. I think there is still a desire to have accessory apartments. They do help serve and fill that void of smaller affordable housing units in town. And I think Madison has done a great job to encourage them. Just from my opinion, our regulations here are less restrictive than those in Guilford from my previous experience. Although they allow larger size apartments, it is all by a special permit process, which is a special exception process. So.
Are there downsides to opting out or?
Ron, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I was asking if there are downsides to opting in or opting out of this. Are there penalties or, I mean, is there any reason?
No, I think it's really, the option has been left to the municipalities to see. I mean, in our particular situation, there aren't that many changes that would need to be made to our regulations to be in compliance with the new Public Act language. However, if there was something that, the town really felt was put in our regs for a reason and we wanted to preserve that right, then yes, that's why we would opt out. If we really wanted to restrict the size or require, we felt that parking requirements were necessary, but or an additional level of review. I think it would make sense. The one major is this renewal affidavit process, the annual permit, essentially. And yes, from an administrative standpoint, it's a hassle. It's another level of paperwork and tracking all of the accessory apartments. These accessory apartment permits are not filed on the land records like a special exception. So record keeping of these permits is the responsibility of the land use department.
Historically, Aaron, these have been, in-law apartments, of course, is what they're commonly referred to as. And there were qualifications that it had to be, as you mentioned earlier, related parents, siblings, employment relationship. That doesn't apply anymore.
Correct. And the Madison's regulations do not require that currently.
That has been the perception, that these are in-law apartments and the people who reside there are to be blood relatives or et cetera. And now this is, allowing anyone who has enough property to really produce an income producing property and put it on at their home. And if that's the case, what is the sense of tracking it? What are we tracking? What value is it?
To track them? Yeah, I mean, I think,
and spending those resources there's nothing to enforce, assuming they don't move more than 3 people into it.
right.
But-
and even that language, I'm not sure if that's required, if you, the number of people living in an apartment, that's another hard one to enforce.
Right. No, what I'm saying is that by keeping track of these units at the municipal level, what purpose is served by tracking them in the first place? We don't separately track houses, and we have records and things, but we're not tracking how many of those and how many bedrooms in the statistics. And I think the other thing is that you mentioned the word affordable housing. Unless the landowner is willing to deed restrict that property or that piece of his property, it's not qualified as
Doesn't
affordable.
count.
So that
Right.
won't help get to the 10% at all.
That's correct. I mean, will it, unofficially help serve towards our goal? Sure.
Yeah.
And that would really be, I think the only value in tracking them would be to kind of get an idea of how many of those units we have. And quite frankly, I don't know what the tracking system has been in the past. I'm happy to get a little more information from John, our ZEO, to see how he's been doing this historically. And if there's, in his opinion, but I would say that, an annual requirement is, it seems to be more of a hassle for the homeowner.
Yeah.
And if it's a matter of verifying ownership, that, I think the intent was to see that if it was owner occupied, at least one of the units owner occupied, it seemed like the property owner could have it a little more under control, and it wouldn't be a rental property, with 2 rental units on it. And I think that's kind of why these regulations came into effect anyways with the apartments. But I'm not sure they're really needed. The state
Well,
certainly
Aaron-
doesn't think they're needed.
Aaron, just going back to his analysis. So with regard to the relationship or whatever, that doesn't say that there has to be a relationship, right?
No, and our regulations do not either.
Okay, but owner occupied is, how's the wording on the with the state statute?
The state statute is silent on owner
On
occupancy.
owner occupancy, yeah.
So it does not state that local municipalities cannot require the apartments to be owner occupied. So even if we adopted, the majority of this language so that we were in compliance with the Public Act, you would be able to incorporate.
They'll
some-
have that in, okay, all right.
That's my understanding of that.
One thing that I thought could be problematic is the 1 parking space in certain sections of town that have a accessory unit to, they have to provide 1 parking space. You could have as many as, 3 vehicles in the extreme, and be some way of,
Wouldn't the marketplace control that a little bit? I mean, if you're going in to rent someplace, only has 1 parking place and doesn't fit your needs, you simply won't rent there. So I'm not sure that's a big issue. My inclination, we have a year, you said, to opt in or opt out, is to sort of look at it as what the state has done is a good set of policies. We ought to look at them hard, adopt them, unless, as we go like you did, step by step by step, and said there's something we just can't live with, then we can change our regulations to emulate the state, except for that 1 provision, for example. When you say you either opt in or opt out, we can always change our regulations to be exactly like the state, except for 1 thing, right?
As long as it's not in contradiction to the language of what we shall do and what we shall.
Right. But,
So, for example, the parking, Ron, if we can't require any more than 1 additional parking space for the apartment. However, if the property owner is proposing 2 spaces for the apartment, we don't have to prohibit that. We just can't require more than 1, which is, I think we're going to look at this a little bit more with parking also, for example, a 1-bedroom apartment or studio, we would require 1 parking space. So, I'm not too worried about the 1 parking space for the apartment. But I guess, yeah, I mean, we all have cars.
Yeah, but the other thing, I'm not too worried about the parking either. I think one thing, if we did want to comply, I mean, for example, right now, I've got property where I could put a separate building in my back part of the yard, right? Right now, I could build a new building. Except now I'm limited to 800 square feet. Under the state regs, I could actually make it more livable by going to 1,000 square feet. And given our zoning, especially up north where we have bigger lot sizes, we could see, pardon me, a lot more small structures being built to accommodate, you know, another person or another family even for rent.
Yep.
Which, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's good or bad.
I can look through some of the other towns. I know Guilford has a maximum of 1,200 square feet for their apartments. I can see what some other neighboring municipalities have for their maximum to see if we're on the lower side. I have a sense that we're on the lower side. 800 is pretty small, but
Yeah.
I can look into that a little more for you also, just to give you a sense.
Okay.
Yeah, so Ron, I think just from my point, personally, I would have no objection to making changes to our regs to comply. However, I would like to see us have the requirement that there needs to be owner occupancy in one of the units, either the main unit or the accessory.
Okay.
I mean, just from looking at it real quickly, that's where
That makes sense.
I would come down.
I don't know whether they covered it. This would not, this wouldn't affect any zoning regulations. Or how would it affect zoning regulations in terms of our existing, for example, setbacks? And those types of things.
There are no other additional setback requirements for accessory apartments currently. So if it's a detached accessory structure, they maintain our standard the same as a single family. An accessory building would have to meet accessory building setbacks. If it's part of the main dwelling or within that 15 feet, they would follow the same setbacks as the main dwelling.
And what about septic? I know that's not in our domain, but I know septic systems are based upon size and number of bedrooms. How might that affect it?
So there was language with respect to septic capacity. It says so nothing in the section would prevent any other requirements where well or private sewage system is being used. They would have to be, those regulations would have to be upheld. Yes, although there are other areas in the statutes that affected septic, it doesn't necessarily relate to the zoning end of accessory apartments.
No, and I realize
Essentially,
I'm just of the opinion that the size of your septic tank is based upon the number of bedrooms.
it is. And we currently do not have a limit on the number of bedrooms in an apartment.
No, all I'm saying is.
But in 800 square feet, how many can you put in there?
Well, one bedroom takes it from a 3-bedroom to a 4-bedroom on the property, which in terms of
Sure.
the septic tank may affect that. And I'm just curious, again, it's not in our domain.
Absolutely.
But how that might or might not affect it, whether there's a carve out for that for some reason, that accessory apartments, the bedrooms
Right.
don't. come-
There's an additional, in an apartment, it's not only number of bedrooms, but there's a design flow also for the apartment itself that has to be taken into consideration. So yes, the health department, it would either have to be the existing system or in a detached structure, the health code requires a separate system unless a central exception is obtained through the state health code to allow both structures to share one system.
Yeah, so there would need to be a building permit.
Absolutely. There's still, we have a
There's
zoning
still a-
permit.
Yeah, Yeah, so,
Zoning permit, B100A, and building permits if actual construction is happening.
right. So there's,
Regardless, it would need a zoning permit.
yeah, so there's control there.
Yes.
Well, some good points have been raised, and I agree that with what Ron said, time is, at least for the moment, on our side to digest it and maybe discuss it and whittle down some of the issues. There don't appear to be that many that are of concern to us to become in compliance. But there are a few questions. So, Aaron, how would you suggest we proceed?
Sure. I mean, I'm happy I can kind of create some language that matches, that complies with the state language and also incorporates some of the commission's concerns with the owner occupancy. I can also follow up from a legal end to make sure that even though the Public Act is silent on owner occupancy, that we can still require that additionally. And I can get a little more information on what some neighboring towns have for their maximum square footage for the units, and then I can bring that back to you at another planning meeting. Again, there's no real sense of urgency. It just seemed to be one that was fairly straightforward for us to tackle in its own section here. Some other changes that we would look to make, honestly, would wait till after we go through our whole POCD process and look to an overhaul of the entire document at that point.
Carol, did I see your hand in the air?
No, you've just seen my head bobbing up and down. I basically agree with everything that Jim said. And Aaron, I'm actually glad you raised that bigger issue, because the Pandora's box I was about to open was, at some point, it would be great with all the different amendments, to clean up the regulations that we do have.
We do, and that's going to be a
And
larger.
that was in the 2013 plan of conservation and development, a recommendation to do that. And every time I hear about another amendment, I just kind of cringe, thinking, how do we keep track of all this?
No, it does. We're at the point, and we have staff does have a running list of recommendations. Now, I have not created that list. I've inherited that from our CEO here. But yes, I do. It doesn't make sense to do a rewrite at this point while we're, right on the verge of doing our POCD.
Right.
And I'm sure there will be other things that we want to incorporate into the regulations. So, we get our overall plan in place, and then we can start implementing that in our regulations, and we'll be in really good shape then. We just have a lot of work to do.
For sure.
Yeah.
Anything else on that subject? No comments, thoughts? Okay, well, thanks for your help with that, Aaron, and we'll begin to refine it and work on it. Thanks, everybody, for their input. That takes care of our agenda.
Yes, for working items. I just wanted to bring up, Ron, we have some pending applications, and unfortunately have a few requests, or a couple of requests to table the items further down the line here. The first one would be Wildwood Avenue. This is a 3-lot subdivision. Since this is before the Inland Wetlands Commission, they're still working to revise their plan. So the Inland Wetlands Agency tabled action to their December 6th meeting. December 6th meeting. So I would ask that the commission table our discussion to the December 16th meeting instead of the November 18th meeting.
Okay. Anybody have an
So
objection?
that's the first one.
No, that's fine.
All
And,
right,
and the second request would be 92 Scotland Avenue is scheduled for a public hearing at your next meeting of November 18th. However, I did hear from the applicant's attorney that they had not posted their sign on the property in a timely fashion and would not be able to comply with our regulations to open that public hearing. So I would ask, this is an affordable housing development that is before you as a site plan approval. And as you know, that's an automatic approval within 65 days of receipt. Your meeting, which would be the 65-day deadline, is the December 16th meeting. So I'm asking if the commission would be willing to open the public hearing at your December 2nd meeting to allow for that hearing to open should we need additional information. It just buys you a little time to work with the applicant and see if there's anything that you need submitted prior to your deadline for action.
Well, excuse me, but if they didn't post the sign, we get to kick that timeline down the road.
We can table, we still have, it's still a 65-day, whether we're holding a public hearing or not, it is a site plan application and the commission is bound. If you fail to act, excuse me, within 65 days, it's an automatic approval of the application.
But
So I would,
listen, you're a lot more experienced in stuff. I would just think the clock has got to be reset. Especially if it's a public hearing, that the public deserves notice. And if they didn't get it up in time,
Correct.
it should be, shifted forward, including the 65 days. Not that
So-
move on in a timely manner, but I don't see why the gun gets closer to our head if they didn't properly file or notice the application.
it is challenging in that sense. If we schedule the public hearing or table the public hearing to the December 2nd meeting, it allows adequate notice, both through legal notices in the newspaper and the 20 days to post the sign and notify abutters. So that would be in compliance with all of the notifications. And at the same time, it would provide that buffer for the commission. We do not have anything scheduled at this point for the December 6th meeting. This is the only item that would be on the agenda for that.
With it. I just thought that
Okay.
the time would shift because they didn't comply with their own
No,
time.
I think in good faith, if the commission came down to the wire and needed additional information or time, the applicant may be willing to grant an extension to the commission. They have up to 65 days to grant to the commission. And I would think they would do that.
Okay. Was
But
everybody,
that has not been offered at this time.
are we comfortable having it on December 4th?
Second,
That?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay. So let's put it on the agenda for December 2nd. Everybody's in agreement with that. Okay.
okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. I don't have any comments other than I wanted to ask John Guskowski, does he have a date certain of which he's leaving us?
Not at this moment. Yes, the goal at this point is not to continue to pay Tyche planning consultants for consulting services that they are not providing. Their services have been offered to the Ad Hoc Affordable Housing Committee to assist in the process of writing the affordable housing plan. However, I have not received confirmation from the committee or their chair at this time that they are interested in retaining John for their services. Should they not choose to use John, then we have the ability to keep him on rather than a monthly contract and hourly as needed.
Yeah. Well, all I was thinking of, the reason for the question, in fact, was, he's been very helpful, particularly before you came on board. And
Absolutely, a great resource.
And I'd like to give us the opportunity to have him come to, a meeting as his timeline winds down and one of our meetings and face to face thank him for all he's done and
Sure.
it for us. So if you'd keep that in mind,
I won't let him disappear.
I think that's a good idea. You've certainly helped us over the hump till you came on board. And I know you've found him useful in getting oriented to some of the things that some of the messes we've already created that were in process. So that would be nice if we could do that. But that's all.
Absolutely.
Say, Aaron, this is Peter, we ought to make sure that we talk about John's role with the Affordable Housing Committee tomorrow morning.
Okay. I did.
If Sarah doesn't bring it up, we need to talk about it.
Okay. I did offer that. I could forward you an email that I sent. I did have a conversation with Peggy, hoping
Okay.
to offer his services. However, the commission best could use him, not to take over, but to be a resource for them.
We also talked a little bit about opportunity areas too that he might look into around the town of Madison.
Yeah, he's willing to hop on the call as well.
Sure.
But I didn't want to be too forward and bring him without having some confirmation from Sarah that he was invited.
And I'll segue from my remarks into just asking Peter, are there any developments or anything on the ad hoc committee?
No, it's been pretty slow. We put the survey out. We've got a lot of response. I mean, it's
Huge response.
yeah, and it's been huge. I mean, many times over what all the other towns have probably gotten. So that's good. As you probably all know, I don't think it's a particularly insightful survey. I guess that's probably being nice.
Mhm.
And we may have to come back and survey people again on a more directed basis. But it's a little slow right now. We're kind of waiting to get the recap of the survey, get a sense for what SCROG wants to do, and then we'll kind of gear up again. We also missed a meeting last week because we didn't do the public notice in time, so we couldn't do it for a FOIA perspective. So we haven't met in a couple of weeks. That's it.
Thanks for that. Do you have any comments, Aaron?
No, I've talked enough.
Well, you talk well when you talk.
Thanks.
Any other commission members have anything? If not, I will ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting. Anyone?
Make that, I'm unmuted.
Jim and Elliot, it was quick. So, okay, well, with that, I will bid you all a fond good evening, good night, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.